Island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Faith for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other world. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Jesus said to them, "The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy to attain to that age and the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage." Welcome, friends. Always an honor to be here with you for another live broadcast. It's a privilege, really, to be able to share time and space with all of those that have come here to fellowship. We have come to be a really close knit family, and um, I just really want to thank all of you for your time and for trusting us in our opinion to share those things that we do. We are doing a follow up on the story of the giants and the watchers and Enoch the prophet. It's a very important account to understand because without a doubt, it is Legion that is perpetuating the evil that we see in the world. And the scriptures foreordain that, the times that are ahead for the last generation, the fig tree generation, and those that would be alive for his return, the second advent of Messiah, that these times, unlike what the New Age promises, the golden age and better than it's ever been, that's all a lie. And the scriptures are clear that these are the worst times ever. And we can see how that is kind of shaping up. But Lisa, are you there, sister?
Hey, Zen, good to hear your voice. Yes, I'm here. We are in a much colder climate today. I'm here with some friends in Wisconsin.
So, how cold is that there?
Well, the locals are saying it's actually pretty warm today. I think it got up to about 40, maybe possibly 50. So they said that's extremely warm for February, but it's supposed to get colder in a few days. I think it was about 9 degrees when we arrived here. So we're just.
How are you guys doing? I heard that the airline decided to sell all your clothes.
Yeah, it arrived about 3 days after we did, so we just turned the heat up in the house, and I didn't want to go outside, and so we got there when it was 6 degrees, and we were just like, oh my goodness, all of our warm clothes were in our suitcases. So we did pack a little bit in our carry-on. We learned from other trips, but thank you so much for all your prayers. Noble is doing much better. If you hear, my apologies in advance. I'm going to try to mute in between because he and his buddy are doing some remodeling in the same house that I'm recording this from. So if you hear a little bit of sawing or hammering, my apologies in advance to everyone.
I'm a naked construction worker.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, goodness, the visual. Just be careful with that hammer, Noble.
I know. The thumb is bad. Something else might be worse.
Okay, so yes.
All right. I'm glad that you're doing better. How are your ribs and breathing?
Ribs are still pretty sore, but I've been trying to do small things around here to try to help. I feel so bad. I could be helping much more, but I really am still nursing those and just praying that they'll heal faster than usual. That the doctor says it's probably about 4 to 6 weeks usually for broken ribs. So we're looking at another month.
Just take on the advisory, supervisory role. All you need is a cattle prod and whip, and you're good to go.
I got my clipboard, pencil, and my megaphone.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Also, just wanted to give everybody an update on Tammy George, our beloved moderator. She has been in the hospital. She did have a heart attack, and but is recovering well. And we thank everybody for your prayers in advance. And um, uh, she seems to be doing better. We'll definitely send our encouragement, and everybody just please keep praying for her, and let's all continue to pray for each other and one another. We're getting older. These are definitely strange and uncertain times, and we just, I just pray for continued peace. I don't want to go into all the insanity of, the wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes in diverse places, the famines and pestilences and all that. Even though all that is, continuously happening, I just every day that I'm able to go out, and especially now with it turning into spring and the weather warming and the beauty of nature and its bloom, it's just such a privilege to be alive and to be part of this creation.
Oh, I totally agree. We're living in exciting times. I think we're going to get into some of that, tonight of
Yes.
the effects of what the end, knowing the end from the beginning and what happened in Genesis 6. And it's going to be, it's really interesting to talk about this subject, especially in these days when we can actually see things happen, like the Euphrates dry up, right?
Right. Yeah, they're saying that ancient cities and sites and things like that are popping up when they were never accessible previously. And so, yeah, definitely strange times. And now also with uh, the the I forget the ground penetrating radar. Yeah, the land. Um, they're able to find and see all kind of megalithic sites and structures built under the canopy of very old growth forests. And in the Saharan desert, I don't know if you've seen this, but there are literally geysers exploding now in the Sahara desert, water just coming up and forming pools and oases and rivers. And it's just insanity,
Oh,
how
yeah.
all that unfolds. But go ahead.
No, yes, I've seen footage of that, and it seems to go with a prophecy about the desert blooming in the end
Yes.
days. And it's just amazing to see that there's this primary water source underneath all of that heat and sand. And if you look at old maps, I don't know if you've seen the old maps in that area where there used to be so many cities and a lot of greenery. And then I'm not sure what event happened that caused it to just be mostly sand, but it's definitely amazing to see that happening.
Yes, I fully agree. And even the Dead Sea is now coming to life. There's actual fish able to live in it with all the springs erupting from below and feeding, lessening, desalinizing all of that heavy
Yes.
salt content.
Right, like as in Second Esdras, where it talks about the salt sea will shoot up fish or something, or spring up
Yes.
fish. Where when we were there, like about 10 years ago in 2014, we actually got to float in the Dead Sea, and there was nothing living in there at that time. But it's amazing because the thickness of the water and the high level of salt, and they've salt mines all over the place over there, and just to imagine that there's actually fish that are swimming in there now, it's incredible.
Yeah, it really is amazing. But let us go into and get into these passages and the elaboration on Genesis 6. We're going to, I don't want to read any more from the fragmentary texts of the books of giants. People can find those online and study them and read them out for yourself, especially the Mandean version, which is an alternative version to the Aramaic and one that most people are not familiar. So check that out. But the reason I had read the opening passage about them not given in marriage and how the angels are not, not supposed to procreate with women or take wives. But that is, even with the fall, the temptation of Adam and Eve, and how the tree was a desirable one to consume, to eat from, and that is what led to her being impregnated with the firstborn of the wicked one, Cain. And the angels also, they fell and they were tempted, not only in the first world age after the fall of the rebellion, um, the insurgency of the angels. Um, then, especially with Adam and Eve, that led to the fall of humanity. But then 6 generations, you have the holy watchers during the time of Yared, and how they were also tempted and fell. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But this passage is expressly connected to the book of Enoch. And for those that may not be familiar with what I am referencing, Yahushua was directly quoting from the book of Enoch, and I'll reference this. We'll go to the book of Enoch, chapter 15. I'll read this, and then we'll get into commentary. And if anybody wants to ask any questions, you can certainly post them in the chat, all in caps, and we'll try to get to them as we roll through the show. But hello again, everybody, and thank you always for your kindness in joining us. Chapter 15 from the book of Enoch, it says, "And he answered and said to me, and I heard his voice, Fear not, Enoch, thou righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Approach hither and hear my voice, and go say to the watchers of heaven, who have sent thee to intercede for them. You should intercede for men, and not men for you. Wherefore have ye left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and lain with women, and defiled yourself with the daughters of men, and taken to yourselves wives, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons. And though ye were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, you have defiled yourselves with the blood of women, and have begotten children with the blood of flesh. And as the children of men have lusted after flesh and blood, as those also do who die and perish, therefore have I given them wives, also that they might impregnate them and beget children by them, that thus nothing might be wanting to them on earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living the eternal life and immortal for all generations of the world. And therefore I have not appointed wives for you. For as for the spiritual ones of the heaven, in heaven is their dwelling. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies because they are born from men. And from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. As for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for you, sorry, I lost my place. Okay, here we go. In their beginning and primal origin, they shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. As for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for the spirits of the earth, which were born upon the earth shall be their dwelling. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men, and against the women, because they have proceeded from them. Care to comment?
Yes, I think this chapter is so amazing because it's so specific and it tells us exactly, I mean, all the information that we're trying to figure out just from Genesis chapter 6 is revealed right here. And the reasons for the flood eventually, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's another thing that they misquote and misteach, is that the flood came about as a punishment for humanity, for all the, and even though, yes, it was portionally, you know, because everybody had gone the way of Cain and had fallen away from righteousness and left the holy mountain to dwell with and to be part of the clan, and to engage in the sexual tristis and orgies of the daughters of Cain. And so um, that was the reason and the purpose, because the giants were feeding on the flesh of humanity, drinking the blood. And we saw how much it was cited that the two children that were first born, um, from the watchers, Haya and Hiwa, that they were eating hundreds of camels and asses and horses and, you know, different cattle, and they were still had voracious appetites and were hungry.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was a great reading we did last time, and good
Yes.
commentaries. And just to clarify for everyone of the size of these giants, especially before the flood. I mean, First Enoch says they're up to 3,000 ells, and you just look that up, and it's 2.1 miles. So it would make sense, you know, all the pictures that we see. There's specific social media pages just dedicated to showcasing these pictures of mountain ranges worldwide, where you can actually see their heads, or, you know, like their profile.
Right.
Or we've never been told up until you read the book of First Enoch, their actual size, and it's hard to fathom. But then you imagine how large the angels are, and I think that was a question I believe that we had in the chat last time that I think it would be great if you could touch on. This is how, and we talked about this too in Digital Readers Club a couple weeks ago, I think. How does that work with the size of the fallen angels and the size of human women, or the daughters of Cain anyway? It explains it a little bit more in Legends of the Jews, but how would they reproduce just due to their huge size difference?
Right. That's a really great question. And initially, we have to remember and realize that the women that were part of the first 10 generations, that they were of larger stature themselves, that, you know, these first 10 generations, they lived 10 times as long as we do now. And that I believe that they were of very much larger stature and would be even considered what we would in this day call giants. But that the giants that were born of the fornication of the watchers with the daughters of Cain, and that were, this huge, I mean, just tremendous size and stature, I believe that we see confirmation of their enormity in the landscape of the world, and that we see that in the stories it was said that they were turned into and petrified and made into the mountains of the world. And I think that, in studying about the first world age, that everything was of giant proportion. Even the dragonflies in that age, they were said to be, their wingspans are 6 feet across.
Wow.
Yeah. So just dragonflies, and then all of the, we see the woolly mammoths and the saber-toothed tigers and things of that nature. But everything in the first world age was huge and was much bigger than what we could imagine. So saying that, um, there was a time as the giants when they were young, uh, that they could conceivably have sexual relations with human women. But even in the Kebra Nagas, we see that they were unnaturally birthed, and that they even, had come up, they split open the bellies of their mothers in order to free themselves from their bodies and kill them. And so it was by no means, a natural or a normal or, you know, um, a regular type of entrance into the world. And we'll read some quotes which are linked to that. But also in reading the book of King Og of Bashan, we see that according to the story, and I'm not in any way claiming it to be inspired. I did think it's a very interesting read and one that can fill in certain aspects of the scriptures and detailing the war of the giants, and how in the book of Enoch, the sentence that was pronounced against them was that the Most High would lead them to war, that the angel Raphael was assigned to bring war and destruction between even the giants and the children that were born of this unnatural fornication. And so there were giants, and they were a race. They were able to propagate themselves much like humans, even though they were a hybrid race, and that they were not created to, the Most High did not bring them into, allow them to be a natural part of the world, and for good reason. I mean, just the appetites and what was said to be eaten by them, that if they were numbered in the accounts that were given in Second Baruch, 409,000 giants, if they were, these first worlder, and they had all of these massive appetites. And even in the story of Jasher, we see that Og, who was one of the last remnants of these giants from before the deluge and were part of the antediluvian age, that he was said to be able to just rip up a mountain, and that this one mountain would be sizable enough to crush all of the tribes, um, of the Israelites that were coming against Og and Sihon, and the Amalekites, and trying to take from them the land that the Canaanites had usurped from the children of Shem. And so the stories are that they were massive in size, and that after the book of Enoch tells us that after the flood, they were reduced in stature and also in lifespan to 500 years, and that the children, um, that were the children of humanity, they would be reduced in stature and also live to 120 years.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much for all that information, that answer, Zen. I think that everyone in chat is really tracking well with you and agrees. And I had one other question about something we had read the last time from the Book of Giants, that fragment that you referenced earlier about all of the different animals, the 200 donkeys, 200 rams, 200 goats, all of that list. I was reading a commentary about this particular text, and the commentator was saying that the following chapter after that particular fragment, where since it starts out they defiled, I think that's a great example of their diet, but I think that it could also be an example of how they defiled all of these animals with the seed of fallen angels to increase their size. What are you
Okay, right on, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they certainly did do that, and they are attributed for even creating, the ass and things of that nature. So they did, um, even in the story of the Anunnaki and how they tried to create a slave race of the pre-Adamites, which the pre-Adamite described the primitive Lulu in the Sumerian tales was much like a Bigfoot Sasquatch type of being, covered fully in hair, arms a little bit longer, um, but that they had no speech. They could only grunt, even though they were communicating with one another. They had no language. There was not yet any hyoid bone for them to, articulate and to be able to speak in language in the manner that we do now. So a lot of difference. And for those that want to know more about the differences between the pre-Adamites and modern humanity, I do cover this in great detail in the Great Contest 1, The War in Heaven. In the latter chapter, I bring forth this narrative from the Colburn Bible, and it goes into great detail. And I also share the Sumerian account. And again, I'm not in any manner saying that these texts are inspired or absolutely trustworthy, but I do want you to be able to read them in the context that we have, because they are very ancient accounts, and they do give us an insight into what had happened during that age and how the dragon lords, as I call them, the Anunnaki, those who from the heavens to the earth came, what they were up to and how they proceeded. And then it was the creation of modern humanity that kind of flipped everything upside down. Um, and then they went after and were trying to enslave modern humanity born from Adam and Eve.
Right, right. They were farming, basically having human farms, right? When they couldn't satisfy appetite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just huge amounts of horrible things going on before the flood. And that brings us to the point where we are now, right? So it's like as it was in the days of Noah, it's getting to be that point where the people are starting to corrupt their flesh. They're starting that chip is out, There's been tests and trials, and they've done a successful brain implant with that memory chip. I don't know if you've heard about that. Yeah, it's just
the Neuralink.
Yes, yes. Or it's supposed to be able to retrieve your memories or store your memories, or to me, it just seems like, why would anyone want to subject themselves to having that implanted just to save your memories when, we have pens, paper, we can type things out, we can write things down to help us remember that are much safer than having that implanted, right? It just
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is foreign, to have this cybernetic cyborg technology fused into what is the natural body of man.
yeah.
We don't know the repercussions of all that.
Yes, and I was going to say too, I totally agree with you about that, the book of King Og of Bashan, that is such a valuable writing to have, since it was just recently released, I think in maybe 2017, and translated to English so we can all read it. And if anyone would like to get a hold of that book, I've got my copy on Amazon. I think it's in some other thrift books and some other book sites, but it's less than $20. The copy that I have also contains the book of First Enoch and the book of Giant Monuments. And that's a really amazing text to read and just see what things were like during that either 409,000 giant war, or some other text I think says 500,000 giant war, and that happened like as the rain was coming down, right?
Right. Yeah. It was leading up to what was the flood, the deluge, and so yeah, and it fits right in with the story, and it also shows us and tells us about how it was that they were led to war with one another, and there was a faction that was led by an antediluvian giant called Nimrod, which that's a title, the rebel. Um, and so this was a Nimrod before the Tower of Babel, and one that was of, these first world giants. But what was so interesting to me about the story was about their involvement in the occult and their practice of different types of Baal magic. There was Baal of the earth, Baal of the air, Baal of the moon,
Yes.
Baal of the fire, different types of alchemical magics that they uh, devoted themselves to and would learn. And they had skills like, invisibility, that they were able to use all of these different types of weapons. And they were writing on prehistoric, what had to be very large dinosaur type creatures, and one that was even able to take flight, and that they used these creatures to war against one another. I thought it's so much like the Lord of the Rings. It was fascinating.
Oh yeah, very much so. The battle that they describe, and they even had like what I call power animals, that would attach to
Right. Yeah.
certain giants and give them extra powers, and just and then the kind of a theme throughout that entire book was the so-called unspoken mistake, in quotes, of course.
Yes. Right.
They don't In other words, they don't really, their pride and their egos are so huge, they don't want to admit that they made such kind of, to me, it's like kind of a dumb mistake to basically kill off all the women.
Slaughter all the women, exactly.
Yeah. And then wonder why, oh no, we only have one baby left, the moon child, and then opposing army kidnapped the baby, I think, and murdered it. So it's just like they did themselves a horrible disservice by doing that. They definitely were not thinking ahead.
No, the women were shopping too much.
Yes, the story of the moon child, and also Og was married to, his queen was named Laseta, and the prophecy was that the moon child would restore the numbers with regard to the giants, but it was the abduction. They tried to abduct her and take her, and in the process, she was killed in the battle, and that is what was called the unspoken, mistake. But I do want to share a passage from the Kevin Nagas, because I think this goes into uh, really quickly, the story of the Watchers and how they were holy angels and how they had challenged Yahushua, the word of the Lord, to put them into flesh form, which is exactly what we see ascribed in the legends of the Jews. But then their fornication with the daughters of Cain and how it led to, this unnatural birthing process. And so I'll share this and then we'll comment and go confirm this story from other accounts as well. But it says this. Um, But take good heed to yourselves that ye transgress not my word, and break not my commandments, and defile not ye yourselves with eating, or drinking, or fornication, or with any other thing whatsoever, and transgress ye not my word. And straightway they were given unto them with his word flesh and blood, and a heart of the children of men. And they were content to leave the height of heaven. And they came down to earth to the folly of the dancing of the children of Cain with all their work of the artisans which they had made, and the folly of their fornication, and to their singings which they accompanied with the tambourine, and the flutes and the pipes, and much shouting and loud cries of joy and noisy songs. And their daughters were there, and they enjoyed the orgies without shame, for they scented themselves for the men who pleased them, and they lost the balance in their minds. And the men did not restrain themselves for a moment, but they took to wife from among the women those whom they had chosen, and committed sin with them. And they were content to leave the height of heaven, and they came down. Oh, did I just read that? Oh, sorry. That's and straightway God was wroth with them, and he bound them in the terror of Sheol until the day of redemption. As the apostle said, he treated his angels with severity. He spared them not, but made them to dwell in a state of judgment, and they were fettered until the great day. The word of God conquered, who had fashioned Adam in his likeness, and those who had reviled and made a laughing stock of Adam were conquered. And the daughters of Cain, with whom the angels had companied, conceived, but they were unable to bring forth their children, and they died. And of the children who were in their wombs, some died and some came forth, having split open the bellies of their mothers. They came forth by their navels, and when they were grown up and reached man's estate, they became giants whose height reached unto the clouds. Nagas, chapter 100. Lisa.
That's an amazing read. I'm sure that's your favorite chapter in that book. It's mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it gives such specific details as to what happened, because that's another question that I'm commonly asked when I'm doing scripture studies with First Enoch or discussing the giants is, how were they born to human women? Like, wouldn't they just be these massive creatures? And what you just read confirms all of that. And I'm sure there's other writings like Legends of the Jews that gives some more detail too. And I'm looking here. I brought along on our trip the Clementine homilies, and they have really good information. The chapter 15 is just on the giants themselves and their size, and how even the Most High even tried to, according to this text, tried to give them even like heavenly food so that they would not be turned to cannibalism.
Right.
They refused that, and it's just he tried to make everything so that they would not destroy the earth, but they were just predisposed to evil.
Yes, they were, and it's unfortunate because that was the ultimate punishment that was brought against their parents, that they would lose their eternal life. And that's the same choice that humanity now has, is that Do you want to have part in eternity? Because we have the choice of serving one or two masters. And so, hello, Eric, and everybody in the chat. But yes, we have that choice now. We are redetermining our allegiance. We spoke about our first estate previously, and about how it's my belief that we had a part to play in what was the war in heaven, and a choice that was made during that time, which posted us in, again, I believe in either the favor of the Most High or to be his enemy and to be against what are the angels of the Most High. And that this war is ongoing, the great contest, as I cited. But yes, you are absolutely correct. There are other chapters and verses, other places which do confirm these same things that we've been speaking about. And it's very, again, that's why I think it's important to study and read from the extra biblical text, because you just never know what kind of nugget, what kind of diamond in the rough you're going to find in the manuscript. And even as you were talking about, like the Clementine homilies, I mean, that book is so full of just incredible information, about this particular story, the Genesis 6, which when I came across it and I first started to read the scriptures for myself, and just getting really fast to Genesis 6 and reading that whole, the idea that the sons of God, the angels, had mated with the daughters of Cain and created this race of giants, which became the arch nemesis of Israel and humanity, and even the Amalekites, and the story of David and Goliath. All of that connects to this particular narrative.
Yes.
That it brings clarity.
Yes, definitely. I was when we were still back at home, I was teaching a group about the relationship. I know this is another tangent to go down with, but with Goliath, when you talk to people who have only stuck to the 66 books and you talk about giants, that's the first person they mention, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, Goliath.
Right.
And then
That's
they
the
don't
only
realize,
one that they remember, yeah.
yeah, and they don't realize that it was pretty much the entire nation of Canaan that, or Canaan, that was just full of giants there, and they mingled with every tribe basically, but especially in Canaan, which is why to me it just seems so ironic that when God chose Abram to, he was the friend of God, and he chose him to be the father of the nation of like his holy nation, that he said, okay, all you have to do is just leave your country and go settle in a tent in the middle of the land of cannibalistic giants in Canaan.
Right, right.
That's
right.
all you. But yeah, I love the Clementine homilies as well, and just the detail that totally matches. It's how we always say, it's so good to have two or three witnesses at least
Right.
to back up information that we're presenting, and you always do that, an excellent job of that, Zen, in all your books. You very thorough research. I'm putting the books that we're listing in chat for anyone listening, so if you want to go and take a look there's some people asking exactly what these titles were, so I've been putting them in the chat, and
Nice.
some available on Amazon, but most of them you can find at sacredwordpublishing.com.
Yes, and I will get you to read, something from the homily after we get to break. Those are very detailed, and I want to just share these really quick ones that I have set apart that are confirming witness to that story that we just read from the Kebra Nagast, which the Kebra Nagast, that's the Ethiopic text, it means the glory of kings. And it is, again, the book of Enoch was part of their canon. But anyways, this one says, Rabbi Meir said the generation of Cain went about stark naked, men and women, just like the beasts, and they defiled themselves with all kinds of immorality, a man with his mother or his daughter, or the wife of his brother, or the wife of his neighbor, in public and in the streets with evil inclination, which is in the thought of their heart. As it is said, and the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. The rabbi also said that the angels who fell from their holy place in heaven saw the daughters of the generation of Cain walking about naked with their eyes painted like harlots. And they went astray after them, and took wives from amongst them, as it is said, and the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took wives of all which they chose. The Perk de Rabbi Eleazar. And from the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, the account of Reuben, it says, for thus they allured the watchers who were before the flood. For as these continually beheld them, they lusted after them, and they conceived the act in their mind. For they changed themselves into the shape of men, and appeared to them when they were with their husbands. And the women lusting in their minds after their forms gave birth to giants. For the watchers appeared to them as reaching even unto heaven. And there's one final passage. She was as shameless as all the other descendants of Cain, and as prone to bestial indulgences. Canaanite women and Canaanite men alike were in the habit of walking abroad naked, and they gave themselves up to every conceivable manner of lewd practice. Of such were the women whose beauty and sensual charms tempted the angels from the path of virtue. The angels, on the other hand, no sooner had they rebelled against God and descended to the earth than they lost their transcendental qualities and were invested with sublunary bodies, so that a union with the daughters of men became possible. The offspring of these alliances between the angels and the Canaanite women were the giants, known for their strength and for their sinfulness, as their very name, the Amim, indicates. They inspired fear. And that's from the legends of the Jews. And so we see, in all these accounts, further confirming witness as to what is cited in Genesis. And then we have two confirming witnesses found in the New Testament, in the book of Jude, and also in the book of Peter, 2 Peter. One gives the account of them going after strange flesh and leaving their place of habitation. Uh, and also, Jude quotes that Yahushua would return with 10,000s of his saints, as it says in the first book of Enoch. Lisa.
Yes, those two verses I really appreciate from the New Testament because they're, especially, they're like direct quotes from the book of First Enoch. So for teaching those who haven't read the book of First Enoch before, or who are just getting started reading it and having a lot of questions as to its validity, it's really good to bring up those two verses along with Genesis 6. And there's verses throughout the Bible that kind of allude to it, but those are very specific, especially the one that quotes directly in the book of First Enoch. And so I've been putting the books you're reading in the chat, Zen, and where to find them. So if anybody wants to look at these books or wants to go to sacredwordpublishing.com to check them out, they've graciously made them all available to us in paper copies. So if anything ever happens to the internet or we can't get online, I think that was one of the things you had in mind, Zen,
Right.
when you your publishing company.
Yes, because I wanted to have them in print, because we can't trust the internet at some point. And they do have prepared, and I pray against, their agenda with regard to the EMPs and all that, and how they could, in a single hour and a single day, as it says in Revelation 17:18, just bring destruction to Mystery Babylon. So much so that everybody would, have to leave their place of habitation. And, that would just be a lot of chaos and a lot of people freaking out because they didn't believe, they didn't read the scriptures, they didn't prepare. They made fun of, the doomsday preppers and all of that. And so, those people that poo-poo the prophecies and the work of watchmen and watchwomen, they're going to get caught with their pants down, and it's just unfortunate. I think that even in this day, we should every day, whatever you have available and possible, to just put away, some food, some water, whatever. Learn to grow food, to
Yeah.
fruit trees and all that. Go ahead. We got
Yeah.
just a few minutes, Lisa. 4
Okay,
minutes.
yes. And also to network, find people that you
Absolutely.
partner
So
with.
important.
Get to know the farmers in your community. It's just so important to have a network of people that you can trust, that you can barter with, and of course do what you said too, to make sure that you always have some extra stock, enough to feed your family as well as others. And I just think that this is all really important here in the last days. I totally agree.
Yeah, and it might be, I think that community and building up relationships with the people that are around you is most critical and will be so as we move forward in these times. But maybe go ahead and start a system where you're bartering, for crops or eggs or whatever, just to go ahead and have something in place. Whatever it is that you may be creating that could be beneficial or um, desirable by farmers or somebody else, that barter and transactions like that would be an awesome way to go forward. And if you can get that set up, it will be in place should anything happen. And last thing is, we have something here called Fresh Harvest, which is a co-op of the local farmers, and they put together these baskets of vegetables and fruit from around the local area. And that would be the idea, to try to do something like that, to get familiar with the people around, to see if there is a mode of exchange that, people can, even for services or labor or, anything like that. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever, that, would be a good
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, everybody has skills, and they've all had gifts that the Father's given us, right? So it's like,
Right.
just use your skills, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that needs your skills, whether it's fixing a car or putting together a desk for someone or helping paint someone's house, or there's a lot of things you can use to barter. It's good to put your creativity to work here, especially if the food shortages continue. And I've noticed on the shelves that there's really not as much stock as there was like
Right.
5 years ago even. It just seems like the stores are running out of things a lot easier. And in Hawaii too, we're totally dependent on, like, 90% of our food is shipped to us. So that's just, to me,
Right.
it's just ridiculous when we can grow things year round.
Yeah, it is absolutely insane. I mean, it's like you guys live in the garden of God, in paradise where everything grows. As you said, the trees take root and go 30 feet up in a single year. I mean, that is just insane. What a great blessing. And for everybody to not be self-sufficient is just craziness.
Yeah.
But we are at break, everyone. We'll be right back for a second hour. We'll get into it in more detail.
Okay.
Be right back.
Good.
Be blessed.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
For 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Good evening.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried and we've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. that time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right, welcome back. I want to share something this is again from the Legends of the Jews, which is just an incredible resource for so much consideration. And again, every Saturday we have our Digital Readers Club, and we are currently reading through the first of 4 books of the Legends of the Jews, which, as I said, there's so much incredible information. So please do consider joining us for this examination. And you can, share and read, and we have commentary and fellowship at the end. And then you can go join Hebrew Hawaiian, Noble, and Lisa in their teaching and the shows that they do to bring forth and to elaborate on not only the Hebrew language, I think is one of the most incredible things you can do is to learn to read the scriptures in their original language. And Noble, having that ability, what an amazing skill set that is. And so we appreciate his teaching the world and sharing his knowledge, but wanted to share this with you because it will give you, again, insight into what we have been covering with the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, which I know for whatever reason is still a topic so hated for consideration. It doesn't make sense to me, especially when it's so obviously plain within the text. But it says this: the generation of the deluge. While the descendants of Cain resembled their father in his sinfulness and depravity, the descendants of Seth led a pious, well-regulated life, and the difference between the conduct of the two stocks was reflected in their habitations. The family of Seth was settled upon the mountain in the vicinity of paradise, while the family of Cain resided in the field of Damascus, the spot whereon Abel was slain by Cain. Unfortunately, at the time of Methuselah, following the death of Adam, the family of Seth became corrupted after the manner of the Canaanites. The two strains united with each other to execute all kinds of iniquitous deeds. The result of the marriages between them were the Nephilim, whose sins brought the deluge upon the world. In their arrogance, they claimed the same pedigree as the posterity of Seth, and they compared themselves with princes and men of noble descent. The wantonness of this generation was in a measure due to the ideal conditions under which mankind lived before the flood. All right, I'm going to just stop there. But it's so good. You'll definitely want to continue the study. But Lisa?
No, it really is. And it just seems, to me anyway, when I first started looking into the giants, I think it was maybe about 9 years ago, or around the same time it was like the flat earth awakening. It seemed like everything kind of came together there for me, especially after I discovered how to actually work YouTube. That it really applies to a lot. And also it just seems like the information is still coming out continually in the different writings. Zen, I don't know if you have dove into the research about the even recent human cloning that they are finding more and more evidence that occurred to repopulate their new lands. And it's so crazy because I just made this connection that cloning and colonialism sounds very much alike, and colonialism even has a very similar meaning to cloning if you look at all the different meanings. And there's been several different groups that have put forth this information. One of them is a YouTube channel called Mind Unveiled, and I don't agree with everything that they say, but I've been heavily into looking at their research about the Cabbage Patch children. And we know that this is something that I'm sure that giants had the technology to do something very similar to produce more humans for them to consume. And then of course, it was fallen angel technology and alchemy, and they passed that down to their generations even after the flood. And I just think it's such a interesting, and I mean, just more and more information is coming out about this fallen angel technology. So we know what to expect here in the last days, right before the tribulation.
Well, I definitely think that genetic experimentation is something that not only the Anunnaki were directly involved in, and it says as much in the Sumerian manuscripts, but that they engaged in direct bestiality, as they did with not only, the pre-Adamites, but with other creatures. And that we see this in the Book of Giants as the miscegenation, that they, in some manner, genetically also corrupted the DNA of plants and had so that the Most High had to bring a flood upon the world in order to restore the natural order of things.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that there's people that have done where they have taken celebrities and looked at individuals in the past, going back, and I think that there's something to that, and also to what the scriptures speak about, or the esoteria speaks about as fit extensions, and what the Emerald Tablets talk about with regard to the serpent-headed deities taking over the councils of men, and that they invaded and corrupted and took over the bloodlines that were in rule over the people of the earth. And I also think that there's something to and why it was that they rushed into Iraq after the Gilgamesh's tomb was discovered. And I think that, anytime they can gain access to Nephilim DNA, that, is part of the whole ongoing super soldier, because there's definitely projects like that where they're trying to enhance soldiers with animal DNA, or give them the ability to have heightened senses, to see at night, or in whatever regard that they are transforming and experimenting upon humanity. I even think that this whole Neuralink, it will be part of, and the AI, the merging of AI and cybernetic and cyborg technology with the human mind. And idealistically, they, say that this is for the benefit or people with disabilities or others, whatever the excuse that they always do this. But then it's the military that steps in and takes over projects and uses them for, what are not good purposes.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I have some interesting information. I'm not sure if you've heard of this with you mentioned about the corrupting the plants even, but I'm sure that they've done some of that even after the flood with all the GMOs and everything. But I can think of two very specific vegetables that they have totally changed. I think even in just the past 100 years. One of them is carrots. I don't know if you're aware that carrots are not supposed to be orange. They're actually supposed to be purple. And you can find this information online. I was looking at some information one time and I just thought, I found that link that someone was saying that no, the actual carrots, you can still buy them as purple or white, but they purposely created an orange carrot for some reason. And I'm not sure what the story is behind that. But the other thing you can look at is broccoli. Broccoli in Italy and in Greece and other parts of Europe if you look straight down on it, it has a perfect Fibonacci curve, and it goes around kind of like a spiral, and it's beautiful. And we've tried it in Italy before. It tastes much better than what we have in the U.S. And so the broccoli that we're eating is not in a Fibonacci circle when you look down on it. And so I'm sure that there's been some manipulation going on with those two vegetables at least. And also too, when you're mentioning of how Gilgamesh, of course, the U.S. is going to be the military arm that the cabal sends in there to go and try to retrieve that whole situation there in Iraq. And that's another reason why the Egyptians, I believe, were so good at preserving their dead, because they knew that later on that could be possibly used for cloning or DNA manipulation or something if they preserved the bodies just right.
Yeah, I agree. And they knew, of these prophecies that they would be detained for 70 generations and then released at the end of days, and that they would get to, exact out their revenge at that time. So they are coming with evil in their hearts and with a desire to slaughter humanity, So.
Oh, yes. Yes. So, of course, they want to try to corrupt our food. And they don't. And you know how Satan, he always does things very subtly, where he's not going to just change everything all of a sudden and freak everybody out all in 24 hours. He does it over a long period of time. So, to normalize it, right? Normalize it first. And then eventually we won't even remember that carrots were any other color except for orange.
Right. And even, bananas. And now, they have all the genetically modified foods, seedless watermelons, things of that nature. I mean, you don't know even what to trust
Right.
in stores, and just the label organic on everything. I mean, still, yeah, it's a label, but is it truthful? I mean, do we even know? And so,
yeah, do we
definitely.
trust that? Pineapples too. In Hawaii, we've seen the displays. The pineapples are usually supposed to be about the size of a softball, but Dole and Del Monte went ahead.
Wow.
Yeah, and they actually taste so much better. Even they don't have that acidic flavor afterwards. They're sweeter, and they're easier to eat. But Dole and Del Monte kind of did a number on that one to make them twice or three times the size of
Larger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and always sweeter. That's what they did to the bananas too, Bananas are supposed to be like the size of your finger, and they, modified these as well. And now all these genetically modified crops are like invading, and it has become the norm. And so that's all so very odd again. And
yeah, it really is. And I'm looking at the chat. I know Sherry Papin, she and her husband have a farm, and she's mentioning she grows purple green beans sometimes also. They turn green when they're seeded. That's very interesting, Sherry.
Yeah, I was looking at heirloom seeds tonight to order. We're going to go ahead and start tomatoes, and there's a wide variety. And yeah, even tomatoes, they have purple and yellow and different types of variety. I like the grape and cherry tomatoes, the real small ones that you could just pick and pluck and eat. Those are really good. But yeah, looking forward to spring and the new harvest season and getting all that started. But yeah, Sherry and Greg, that what an awesome thing to get all your food, and I think that would be, I think that's a skill set that is so undervalued. And even my son, he wants to do that, to have acreage and to be able to have, different numbers of animals, free range roaming, and all of that. Thank you, Brick. We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Lisa.
No, I totally agree. I have a friend here with me. Actually, she has a farm as well, and she used to work for a seed company. And she says heirloom is awesome. They have amazing things. I'm sure they have such a huge variety. I haven't ever looked at the website, but she's endorsing it.
Yeah, so the heirlooms. I want to do, like garden stuff and herbs and dill and rosemary and basil. I love to eat just the leaves off of a basil plant all the time. They just taste so good. But the smell of rosemary, all of that, it's just what an exciting time. So love spring.
And rosemary's, I've read, is pretty good for your brain, for your memory. People could do that instead of Neuralink, right? Just smell some rosemary.
Yeah, right. I would definitely never do the Neuralink stuff.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh, and Sherry says she grows purple tomatoes. My goodness, I had no idea.
Awesome, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they all have different flavors, and how better than to just pick it straight from your garden, knowing that there's no fertilizers or things that have been sprayed upon it. Now they're spraying deli meat and stuff. I mean, just very odd, but the whole point is, I think that they are focused on reducing the numbers. That in the report from Iron Mountain, they said that if we're going to have world peace, we've got to have other ways of managing and culling the population, and the endorsement then to put toxins in the food and the water and the air. And again, this is all my opinion, but you can read it for yourself in the report from Iron Mountain. This is going back to the 50s and the 60s, and they have, without a doubt, since that time, implemented these measures. And so, yeah,
They've all pre-planned, huh? It's just.
Yeah.
At least we know what to expect. We're
Right.
I love it. The more extra biblicals are being released. I understand that you're continuing to work with the good people in Bulgaria, with the Thracian books that are being uncovered as we speak, and then will be translated. And it's just such a wealth of knowledge that we're blessed with during these times.
It really is. It's amazing the stuff that is coming forth. I'll share a passage from Jubilees, chapter 9. It says, and this is one of the children of Japheth, and he found a writing which the former generations had carved on the rock, and he read what was thereon, and he transcribed it and sinned owing to it, for it contained the teaching of the watchers, in accordance with which they used to observe the omens of the sun and the moon and the stars in all the signs of heaven. When you look back at the former times, and especially the antediluvian times, going back to what are the oldest cultures, civilizations, those that worship the feathered serpent, you will find closely associated to them the blood sacrifice and the demand for the victimization, the utilization of fear, and always their inner actions with these omens, the sun and the moon, how they, because they had watched and seen over thousands of years the pattern of heaven, and how the sun it's the sun moving over the face of the earth, back and forth between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer, that creates the seasons. And also, that it shows the movements of when they reach the winter and the summer solstice. And these are the two extremes, and then it reverses course. And so they would utilize this knowledge to subject the cultures and civilizations which worship them, and which they, had families of hybrid individuals in place, that, there we would see the elongated skull people, that they were often the pharaohs or the priests which ruled over the tribes and the clans. And so always there was this division. There were the people of God that worshiped Elohim and what is the holy triune Godhead, which included, as the Thracians, the feminine Holy Spirit, and that this was a family, and that, the human family was made in the image. And so there's the worship of true Elohim, which is the true Godhead. And even, in John 1, where in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and all things were created by him. That word God is also the word Elohim, just in the Greek. And it includes, when you do the Strongs and the word study on that, and I brought this up in my speech at the conference, that is also including the Trinity, which included the Ruach HaKodesh as the feminine aspect of Godhead. And so we have these two ways ever since the beginning. We've never been just one people, one happy family, one human race. It's never been that way. Everybody, always thinks, oh, one love, one family, and idealistically, yeah, that is what it should be, and was. But, going back to the very beginning, Eve was beguiled by the serpent, impregnated with Cain. So we've had this enmity between these two bloodlines since the very beginning, and it will continue to the end. Let both grow together until the time of the end. And then the angels would be sent forth for the division and the harvest. So very important information to understand and to consider. It helps everything else to make sense. Lisa?
No, yes, I totally agree. And I think we were talking a little bit last time about that very parable that Yeshua taught, the wheat and the tares, and then he had the explanation. And it doesn't make any sense unless you know that there's two bloodlines, and that those two bloodlines started from the garden. And I would say the majority of people right now, if they have dove into the Genesis 6 rabbit trail and know about the giants and have even read the book of Enoch, they still have not gone back far enough to the garden to where those two bloodlines would have started. But I think it's good to really think about that, because when I was kind of studying that and trying to wrap my mind around that for a couple of years, my whole question I kept asking myself is, why wouldn't Satan try to corrupt the first humans on earth? Why would he wait all the way till the days of Jared, And so if you just think about that in your mind, if you haven't wrapped your mind around the serpent seed concept beginning in the garden, that's a good question to ask yourself. And just to know Satan and his tactics, it makes so much better sense that he would have started from the first on earth, from Adam and Eve, to corrupt that seed.
Yes, absolutely. And also going after the generations, that he was trying to prevent, and to create and contaminate what was the bloodline of Messiah. And he knew the promise was that Yahushua would come and be born of Adam's bloodline. But I think that this was the reason why, a virgin would conceive, and that would be the sign. is that he would have to bring in the purity of what is Elohim into the bloodlines in order to restore us and to restore what had been the corruption that goes back to the beginning, the miscegenation. And that, it was his coming, and it speaks about in the scriptures about how the Virgin Mary, that she had rectified and had redeemed what was the fall of Eve and her temptation and becoming an adulteress, and that she was seduced by the serpent. And so both of them were very special, very special. Yeah, even we see that Anna and Joachim, that they were promised and she was beyond the childbearing age and ability, and yet she was able to, in the same way that Abraham and Sarah, that they were blessed. And so the Most High is able to do what he wishes and to bring forth and to make sure that the bloodline turns out exactly in the way that he needs it to in order to bring forth the Messiah in purity. And, that's why Noah was pure in his generations, and that, again, this is the background, behind the story of what is the great contest between these two bloodlines.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think I heard you and Brett doing a show several months ago where this really blew my mind. I don't know if anyone else in the chat has heard this one, but about how, like what you were mentioning, Zen, about the war between the bloodlines began with Satan's only begotten son. And in order to rectify that, to reverse what happened in Herman and to reverse what happened in the garden, Yeshua needed to come as the only son of the Father.
Yes, amen. Absolutely.
And shed his pure and precious sinless blood, as opposed to Cain's cannibalism. If that makes any sense.
Yes, absolutely. And a very important part. Wanted to ask you if you had something from the Clementine homilies that you could share, which is,
Yes, I do.
Okay, wonderful.
If I can, there's a couple very short chapters. They're like a short paragraph each.
Yeah, please.
I was thinking of starting with chapter 7, the metamorphosis of the angels, because I taught on this several weeks ago in our Hebrew class, but I always had that question: how did the angels even approach the Most High, or even to just ask him if they could take on the form of humans so that they could corrupt, or they could mate with the daughters of Cain, basically. And this kind of explains it to me. And this is chapter 7, the metamorphosis of the angels. And it says, "For of the spirits who inhabit the heaven, the angels who dwell in the lowest region, being grieved at the ingratitude of men to God, ask that they might come into the life of men, that really becoming men, by more intercourse, they might convict those who had acted ungratefully towards him, and might subject every one to adequate punishment. When, therefore, their petition was granted, they metamorphosed themselves into every nature, for being a more godlike substance, they are able easily to assume any form. So they became precious stones, goodly pearls, the most beauteous purple, choice gold, and all matter that is held in most esteem. And they fell into the hands of some, and into the bosoms of others, and suffered themselves to be stolen by them. They also changed themselves into beasts and reptiles, fishes and birds, and into whatsoever they pleased. These things also the poets among yourselves, by reason of fearlessness, sing as they befell, attributing to one the many and diverse doings of all." And this chapter 8 is the fall of the angels. So, but when, having assumed these forms, they convicted as covetous those who stole them, and changed themselves into the nature of men, in order that, living holy and showing the possibility of so living, they might subject the ungrateful to punishment. Yet having become in all respects men, they also partook of human lust, and being brought under its subjection, they fell into cohabitation with women. And being involved with them, and sunk in defilement, and altogether emptied of their first power, were unable to turn back to the first purity of their proper nature. Their members turned away from their fiery substance for the fire itself, being extinguished by the weight of lust and changed into flesh. They trode the impious path downward. For they themselves, being fettered with the bonds of flesh, were constrained and strongly bound. Wherefore they have no more been able to ascend into the heavens. And did you have any comment on that, Zen, before I go on to the next chapter, another paragraph, their discoveries?
Just that, again, even in the Clementine homilies, which is like a New Testament type of extra biblical manuscript, how that text goes into great detail on this. And it just shows you again that the ancient church, the apostles, and the prophets, they were very much familiar with the book of Enoch and with the fall of the angels and with the rebellion, how they could clothe themselves and bring themselves forth even as an angel of light. I mean, all of those things were very important for our consideration, especially in this day and age, because we see Legion coming forth and, as you said, all these different forms. I mean, we got all of these like dinosaur type creatures and cryptozids and the pre-Adamites like the Sasquatches and the Yetis and all of that. I mean, the giants again coming forth and being released. I mean, we are seeing a lot of strangeness, especially in far off areas, remote parts of the world.
Oh, yes, for sure. I just think it's interesting how they changed their form and their initial it sounds like their initial request included, well, we could help the Most High God, and we could correct the mankind that's falling away from him, and then they ended up falling themselves. And it seems like that's so typical of how people who well, I did this back when I was in college. I was thinking, okay, well, if I go to the bar, I can witness to people there, and that's ministry. Yeah, right. You end up following everybody else who's there. It's just it's bound to happen, So it's kind of like what these angels did. Did you want me to go on and read about their discovery?
Yeah, please.
Okay. For after their intercourse, being asked to show what they were before, and being no longer able to do so on account of their being unable to do anything else after their defilement, yet wishing to please their mistresses instead of themselves, they showed the bowels of the earth, the choice metals, gold, brass, silver, iron, and the like, with all the most precious stones. And along with these charmed stones, they delivered the arts of the things pertaining to each, and imparted the discovery of magic, and taught astronomy, and the powers of the roots, and whatever was impossible to be found out by the human mind, also the melting of gold and silver and the like, and the various dyeing of garments. And all things, in short, which are for the adornment and delight of women, are the discoveries of these demons bound in flesh. And the next chapter is chapter 15, called The Giants.
Awesome.
But from their unhallowed intercourse, spurious men sprang, much greater in stature than ordinary men, whom they afterwards called giants. Not those dragon-footed giants who waged war against God, as those blasphemous myths of Greeks do sing, but wild in manners, and greater than men in size, inasmuch as they were sprung of angels, yet less than angels, as they were born of women. Therefore God, knowing that they were barbarized to brutality, and that the world was not sufficient to satisfy them, for it was created according to the proportion of men and human use, that they might not through want of food turn, contrary to nature, to the eating of animals, and yet seem to be blameless, as having ventured upon this through necessity, the Almighty God rained manna upon them, suited to their various tastes, and they enjoyed all that they would. But they, on account of their bastard nature, not being pleased with purity of food, longed only after the taste of blood. Wherefore they first tasted flesh. That's the end of that chapter. The next one is called cannibalism. Did you have any comments, Zen?
Oh, no, again, just further confirmation as to the things we've been talking about here. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll continue. And the men who were with them there for the first time were eager to do the like. Thus, although we are born neither good nor bad, we become one or the other, and having formed habits, we are with difficulty drawn from them. But when irrational animals fell short, these bastard men tasted also human flesh, for it was not a long step to the consumption of flesh like their own, having first tasted it in other forms. And then the next chapter is called the flood. But by the shedding of much blood, the pure air being defiled with impure vapor, the sickening those who breathed it, rendered them liable to diseases, so that thenceforth men died prematurely. But the earth being by these means greatly defiled, these first teemed with poison darting and deadly creatures. All things, therefore, going from bad to worse, on account of these brutal demons, God wished to cast them away like an evil leaven, lest each generation from a wicked seed, being like to that before it, and equally impious, should empty the world to come of saved men. And for this purpose, having warned a certain righteous man with his 3 sons, together with their wives and their children, to save themselves in an ark, he sent a deluge of water, that all being destroyed, the purified world might be handed over to him who was saved in the ark, in order to a second beginning of life. And thus it came to pass. And then one more chapter. This is the law to the survivors. Since therefore the souls of the deceased giants were greater than human souls, inasmuch as they also excelled their bodies, they, as being a new race, were also called by a new name. And to those who survived in the world, a law was prescribed of God through an angel how they should live. For being bastards in race of the fire of angels and the blood of women, and therefore liable to desire a certain race of their own, they were anticipated by a certain righteous law. For a certain angel was sent to them by God, declaring to them his will and saying, "These things seem good to the all-seeing God, that you lord it over no man, that you trouble no one, unless any one of his own accord subject himself to you, worshiping you and sacrificing and pouring libations and partaking of your table, or accomplishing anything else that they ought not, or shedding blood, or tasting dead flesh, or filling themselves with that which is torn of beasts, or that which is cut, or that which is strangled, or anything else that is unclean. But those who betake themselves to my law, you not only shall not touch, but also do honor to, and shall flee from their presence. For whatsoever shall please them, being just, respecting you, that you shall be constrained to suffer. But if any of those who worship me go astray, either committing adultery, or practicing magic, or living impurely, or doing any other of the things which are not well pleasing to me, then they will have to suffer something at your hands, or those of others, according to my order. But upon them, when they repent, I, judging of their repentance, whether it be worthy of pardon or not, shall give sentence. These things, therefore, ye ought to remember and to do, well knowing that not even your thoughts shall be able to be concealed from him."
Awesome.
Isn't that
an amazing chapter?
I love that. Yes, I love that message from the Most High through an angel to
Right.
to the law to the giants and the demons.
Yeah, and that's why we see even in the scriptures in Revelation where it speaks about magicians and occult practices and witches and black magic, all those things, that the Most High literally hates people who indulge themselves in such practices. And there's a reason. And, when people get into, because they always try to say, oh, there's white magic, instead of cursing people that they're trying to do good. But, the occultism and the practice of magic, whether white or black, you are still invoking and conjuring up devils, demons.
Yes.
And so, your intent and opening yourself to, because those spells are like that Necronomicon that we were speaking about. Those are ancient spells to the Anunnaki. They invoke them in order to receive their knowledge. And even Solomon, he had the ability, the capacity, and this was, in ancient times, the knowledge that was passed on, the Goetia, that led to their ability to, as the scriptures say, they sacrifice unto devils. And so that's why the Most High hates the pagan and Gentile nations and practices, because they've been led astray to involve themselves in the worship of the fallen angels, which is, a covenant of blood, a demand for sacrifice, the slaughter of innocents, animals, all of that. And so,
Yes.
yeah, so
Very, very much so. And I was actually doing a Bible study over here yesterday, and that question came up as to why did they call them like the goyim, and why do certain nations worship other gods like so much more than the one true God? It just seems like it's overwhelming in certain areas. Like we went to Bali like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and just driving through the streets there, I was just shocked at the amount of idols that people were selling booths right at the edge of the road, like miles and miles of this. I was thinking, my goodness. But if you go back to, I think it's Deuteronomy 32, and then there's also a passage in Psalms that talks about the Tower of Babel and how the nations were divided according to the sons of God. And those were not the heavenly angels. They were the fallen angels that are placed over each area of the world. And some say 70, some say 72, but it's around that number of the nations that were divided after Babel according to their, and each was placed over with different languages then. And that would make sense that these fallen angels would desire and do whatever it takes using their demonic, their demons that can only stay here on earth, and to influence people to gain their worship. And then, of course, most recently, we're seeing it so much, a huge influx of the celebrity worship, which is another form of idolatry, in my opinion.
Right. And, the thing that we don't know, even though we hear about it, and about how they are really selling their souls to involve themselves in celebrity and to be part of the mechanism of what is, the disjointed, the pyramid that we see on the American currency, that they align themselves with Oz, and the Eye of Ra and Horus, which is the worship of Samael, that these people are giving themselves and knowingly for power and wealth and control and fame, that they're willing to sacrifice their eternity, which why would I just don't understand that, but they do, and they're willing, and they are wanting, and because of that, we have the ongoing, this enmity, this battle between these bloodlines, and that these elitists are definitely part of it. And I think that, as you were saying, the cloning, that is a part of bringing forth these elitist bloodlines and families, and those that are willing to give themselves over and to practice the rituals when the blood is offered, that kind of thing. So there's a lot more to it than we're being told or that we know. The deep underground bases, the way that they set up all of these places and basements and dungeons and deep underground places within the earth. They think that they're not seen and that they are able to get away with what they do, and then their involvement in the orgies, because it's always the sexual deviance that attracts, in my opinion, the people to Satanism and all of that, because that is a part of it as well. But still not worth your eternal life.
Oh, for sure. And you see the concerts going on nowadays. It's so obvious that they do satanic rituals, and they get the audience participation, I mean, it seems like I always bring up this person every time I talk with you on the show, but Taylor Swift, it just seems like that is really ensnared the young people, the younger generation, and I'm just in shock at even. It seems like these celebrities can just get away with doing anything, and the younger generation doesn't realize that they're involving themselves in a satanic ritual every time they attend one of these concerts, and every time that they listen to their songs. That how the backmasking, how they're heavily influenced by satanic rituals just to produce an album. There's nothing new under the sun. They're just continuing, and it's getting more and more obvious to me anyway.
Don, my friend was talking to me about the hertz and the way that they're changing the frequencies, and I just saw that Trey Smith had put out a documentary about that and about how your intentions, even towards rice or water, that if you focus on sending it positivity and love, that it grows and it will continue to bloom. But when you send negative energy to something, it will literally destroy it, and mildew and mold and all of that, and it will become not good or sustainable for life.
Yes. There was also a Japanese scientist that did that with strawberries. And you can also do it with plants, where they've done experiments where they just speak horrible cursing and negative things into one plant, and then the other plant they tell how beautiful it is and say wonderful things in scripture and everything. And the one that the first one will probably die within a week, and the second one will live. It's amazing the power that the human voice has on God's creation.
Yeah, it again shows you the intent and how important it is that, with your prayers, that you have positive, and that you send that energy out, because we reap what we sow. And as it says in the scriptures again, that the power of life and death are in the tongue, and that depending on what you say and how you what you intend, that's what reflects back and is magnified even, and comes back towards you. And that the way the Most High has set it up is that we as a church, as a people, as a family of Christ, when we pray for and we bless each other and one another, and we are doing prayers of blessings in that manner, that's how you are yourself blessed by the Most High, is by doing random acts of kindness and being good to others and helping the less fortunate, taking care of others in that way. But I do also see that people ignorantly and without any thought, that they're using language where they're cursing people, and they're not even, really, people that are damning others or using GD, and asking God to damn others, which is a big no-no. But it is all cursing, and you don't want to do that because there's repercussions to doing that. And then if you're unconsciously, every day, you're having this as part of your language, and you don't have realization as to what you're doing, that's a lot of, lesson to be returned unto you for cursing others. And so that's why we have to be very, very, very careful. But 7 minutes remaining. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, just like life and death is in the tongue. I mean, it's all throughout Scripture that you need to be very careful what you say, and when you're speaking, to speak life. It'll always come back to you, and also that I totally agree with what you're saying, that all of us should be ministering and helping other people in whatever capacity we're able to, especially those who aren't able to help themselves. And throughout Scripture, it always mentions orphans, widows, those in need, homeless. It's something that makes us set apart from everyone else, to help those in need, and not to go around just asking for money, but to just help them with what we have, and even take them into your home. I mean, it's something that a lot of people.
Share a meal.
But if you have room, yeah, if you have room and you know someone that needs a place to stay, pray about it. It is going to be a wonderful blessing for you to do that. And every time that you help an orphan and widow, especially, it seems like there's special blessings reserved for those who do that. And if you don't know anyone personally, you can always go to Sacred Word Publishing, like Zen and his family. They have orphanages that they've helped establish, and they have special funds to help those in need. And if you donate to them, you can guarantee that your money is going to be going to a very legitimate and very needed area. I believe one of them is in Kenya, and the other one is it Myanmar, Zen? I'm trying to remember the name. What country?
There's Myanmar. We support 4 orphanages. One's in Kenya, one in Uganda, one in Myanmar, one in India. But yeah, we and without a doubt, even with Sacred Word Publishing, we have established that 15% of all our proceeds go to supporting our Endeavor Freedom, which is the nonprofit we set up to do and to support the orphans and the widows and people with disabilities, veterans, and even animals in need. We give to all these different kinds of causes, and it's an awesome thing. Like one that we support is called The Howl of a Dog, and it's just a YouTube channel that I came across a long time ago. Another one is Southeastern Wildlife Fund, and they take in raptors and nurse them and take care of them, and they're one of the only places in the Southwest. They're based in Utah there, and they take animals from all over, and they nurse them back to health. And the individual that runs it, he has special relationship with all of these animals and nursing them and bringing them back, and then releasing them in the wild. It's just a beautiful thing, and then just really quickly, the Howl of a Dog. These people are based somewhere in Europe, and they go out and they find and take care of all the animals that are in need, that, like, they showed this video, this one dog, it was a chow, and it just had this big coat of just dreadlock hair. And it was just from, nobody brushing it and never having been shaved, and all the insects and things that were on it. And they show the videos where they take these animals into the vets and get them groomed and get them help and dewormed and deparasited and defleed and all of this. And then they find homes for them. And it's just, it will bring you to tears watching any of those videos. And they're doing this for all these animals. And, it's that kind of thing that we love to support, people.
That's so cool. That's a really cool ministry to help God's creatures too. And
yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's it's just amazing. I see a lot of people in chat. They're talking about different frequencies that are good, and I just appreciate everyone in chat for contributing tonight. There is a quick question from Roman. Yeah. I'm not sure if you have time to answer this, Zen. He's asking, what is your view on the English language being a cursed language?
Roman, I'll have to look into that further, brother. I've never heard of that, and I don't know, as to the if there's substance behind that. But I will definitely check it out, and I will announce it again at some point with regard to, an AMA or something. But I will definitely remember, and we will bring it up again. But we are at the end of show already. Wow, everybody. We do appreciate all of you. Final comment, Lisa?
Just if you set your mind on the things above and not on the things of this earth, it just seems like you pray and things will come where you'll be in situations where you can help others, and to just do the service for the Most High, since we're so close. We're so, I feel like we're very close to the tribulation, and there's going to be a lot more people in needing help as we get closer. So for those of you that have I think everyone in the chat right now has definitely have their mind set up on the things above and not on the earth.
Yes.
And that's kind of a good verse to go by.
Yeah. Oh, final thing. I've been, feeding the birds for a very long time. And this is part of my giveaway to them, supporting the Most High's creation. I like to give them the black seed, the sunflower seed, and I get 40-pound bags, and they just go through it all the time, and they trust us so much. But this week is when the yellow finches return, and they're so beautiful to see, and they're out there feeding with the red cardinals and all the different birds that come to the black-winged red birds. And it's just, I think it's important to support nature and to feed the animals, and because they're innocent and they're in need. So we provide them a buffet here, and they love it. So
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So, anyways,
we're at the end here, right?
yes. Good night. God bless all. We love you. We'll see you tomorrow night, and have a great evening.
All right. Shalom,
Aloha.
everyone. Thank you, Zen.
Good night. Be blessed, Lisa.
Good night.
Good night, all. Shalom.
Thank you everybody for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.